Chapter 4, Privacy, Part 4 of 7, Fair Information Practices and Access to Government Records. The learning outcomes include: discuss the ethical issues associated with laws that provide protection for personally identifiable information, identify the capabilities of advanced surveillance technologies, and discuss the ethical issues associated with advanced surveillance technologies. Fair information practices refers to how your personal data is handled by others. European Union or EU personal data protections are more stringent than the US. In fact, some companies were almost blocked from trading with anyone in the EU, but they were given safe harbor until their data protections matched or exceeded the EU. The EU Data Protection Directive further ensures that data transferred to non-EU countries, like the US, is protected just like EU personal data is protected. Like many rules and regulations, this directive aims to set a single group of rules for data protection across the EU and beyond. There is a voluntary group that seeks to set policies and agreements for multilateral approval in order to streamline the processes for companies in member countries. It's called the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. The map to the right shows the member countries as of 2016. Member countries are in dark blue with lighter colors indicating other countries that are eligible to enter or that have improved commitment to protect data. Note that this is a voluntary organization with limited enforcement options, particularly outside the EU. Organizations should strive to protect their customer data according to the terms of service and terms of use that they've agreed to with their customers. In fact, the Secretary's Advisory Committee on Automated Personal Data Systems advised following 4 principles to secure personal data. 1, don't have a system whose existence is secret. Make sure people know where and how data is being collected on them. 2, people must have a way to find out what information is being collected and how it is being used. 3, people must be allowed to keep their data collected for one purpose from being used for another unapproved purchase. Organizations must ensure that the data they collect is reliable, and they must have precautions to prevent people from accessing or misusing data. From these recommendations, 5 widely accepted core principles governing fair information practices of privacy protection have emerged for any organization that collects protected personal data. First, notice awareness. Companies must ensure that people know about the data that is being collected on them. Next, choice or consent. People must give affirmative consent to allow their information to be collected and used in agreed upon ways. 3, access participation. They must be able to actively participate in correcting their data through fair mechanisms of access. 4, integrity security. Organizations must be proactive in protecting customer data and ensuring its integrity, making sure it's correct data. And 5, enforcement redress. Organizations must have mechanisms in place to allow customers to seek redress if information is used improperly, often through guaranteed payment of purchases made on your credit card after numbers have been made public, for instance. While these components of a code of fair information practices are guidelines, all companies do not follow them precisely. It's incumbent on you as the owner of your data to ensure that you know about the data that is collected about you, that it's accurate, and that it's not used in ways not approved by you. You must ensure that you are aware of the terms of use when you click on I agree. Don't do it without reading, at least skimming what you're agreeing to do. Access to government records varies across the world. In the U.S., we have the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, which allows citizens to access governmental records. To do so, the request must not require significant and onerous searches and must be made according to regulations posted. Freedom of Information Act does not apply to classified items. Georgia is an open record state, so most government documents are available for review upon request. At KSU, for instance, pretty much everything is available for review except personnel records, which are private. So make sure that the email you send from your KSU account is something you'd be okay with seeing posted online by the AGC tomorrow. Access to government records is made available through several regulations, including the Privacy Act, which sets rules for how personal data is collected, maintained, used, and given out. These rules only apply to federal agencies. In addition, the Privacy Act prohibits U.S. government agencies from keeping any personal data record-keeping system secret from citizens. Classified data is excluded. What about the National Security Agency, NSA, though? You may have heard something about the NSA collecting phone metadata on everyone in the U.S. and elsewhere, and on non-citizens and U.S. citizens without authorization or a warrant. Perhaps you heard from Edward Snowden. Although the government argued that the collection was legal under the Patriot Act, a federal judge disagreed in May 2015. In response, Congress passed the USA Freedom Act in late 2015, which requires phone companies to store metadata locally. This data is searchable by the NSA only after they make a legitimate request and receive an order from the FISA court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, for a specific selection term. They must also make requests open by specifying numbers and/or persons they wish to target. Further, they must report each year to Congress on details of the program, including the number of requests made. Remember the scales of justice? They weigh the importance of business or government purpose, security, against the degree of intrusion on reasonable expectations of privacy. In the NSA data collection case, the federal judge determined that the government security needs did not outweigh the privacy expectations of U.S. citizens. This may make you remember the quote from Benjamin Franklin, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." We have to balance our individual freedoms against the government's need to secure us as a country. As a side note, although this quote is often made when discussing individual privacy versus government overreach, Franklin was actually talking about a taxing dispute he had over some farmland. However, it ties in well with what we're saying. He did have quite a flair with words. In summary, there is no right to privacy in the U.S. Constitution, although it has been inferred from the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments. We say this over and over again because it's important to secure your own data where possible. Laws, technical solutions, and privacy policies are required to balance needs of business against needs of consumers. We don't want too much security that compromises on our individual privacy rights. While laws have been created that affect personal privacy, many areas are not covered, and personal and professional ethics should be used. Outside of the U.S., laws may be different, and it's best to consult an international lawyer who is experienced with the country.